Hello and welcome to Kibble and Quibble, the place where we talk about dogs. You'll hear from dog experts who will share their tips and tricks with you. Let's get started. This week's episode, where we talk about all things related to grooming. Joining me today is Ryan from Canine Grooming. Deirdre is somewhat of a veteran in the industry as a professional groomer with Dog Groomer with 20 years experience. She's also a dog behavioural specialist as well as a dog trainer. Welcome, Deirdre. Why did you decide to become a dog trainer and a dog behavioural specialist at the same time as becoming a groomer?
Well, actually, I did the dog behavioral initially because I wanted to be a dog trainer, but that was nearly 20 years ago, and Thurles wasn't ready for dog trainers yet. People thought it was a bit mad to be spending money on dog training. So it just wasn't going anywhere. So I went back and I decided to specialize in the grooming instead. At least with that, the industry was getting a bit busier and people were looking after their dogs a bit better. So yeah, it was only in the last 6 years I decided to do the puppy socializing classes and start to training again, because I think we're starting to kind of mirror European countries a little bit more, with the dog parks and the dog cafes. So yeah, Ireland is getting there anyway.
Yeah, definitely. It's becoming a big industry in its own right. And there's absolutely nothing like being able to communicate with your dog, like being able to issue commands and know that they're going to obey them. It makes everything safer for the dog, for you, and for other people. So it's certainly a good idea. And like that, I was intrigued that you're both a trainer and a groomer because there isn't really anyone else to go to. You wouldn't typically spend a lot of time talking to your vet, for example, for dog advice. But when you take your dog grooming, it's the perfect time to ask a few questions and have that little bit of a chat, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'd agree. People love it's kind of part of the
Yeah.
job is having the chat with the customer, to be honest with you. You want to make them feel like that they're putting their baby into someone they can trust. And you kind of have to put the owner at ease just as much as you have to put the dog at ease, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. So, which dog breeds need the most regular grooming?
Funnily enough, it's the non-shed breeds I find need the most grooming. Yes, they say they're non-shed, as in you don't have the hairs around the house like you would say a Jack Russell. But when there's no dog actually non-shed, like us, everybody lose hair. But the difference between that and a Jack Russell is the non-shed dogs, their hair kind of gets stuck. Their undercoat gets stuck in their hair. And if you don't brush it out, it gets matted. And then if there's too many matted, someone like me is going to have to come along and clip all the hair off tight. As much as I don't want to, that's usually what happens. So when you say non-shed, just remember it means high maintenance.
Yeah, it has to lose hair somehow, whether it grows out until you cut it or whether it pops out. The dog grows hair, it's a living creature. What is a good age or time to start getting your dog used to grooming?
Well, first of all, it's really important that they have all their vaccinations, especially the last set at 12 weeks. But after that, you can come to the groomer at any stage. The earlier you get them started with the grooming and getting used to it, the better. Usually for the first couple of times, especially if they're nervous, I will get the owner to stay. And it's more kind of getting to know me than anything else. So if they're nervous at a dryer, we won't do that. If they have a problem with noise, we put a kind of a little, they're called happy hoodies. They're like a little blanket that goes over their ears so they can't really hear the noise. So there's lots of different methods we can use to get them used to the grooming and make them more ease at the grooming.
And how should someone get their dog used to grooming at home? Like, should you play with their paws and things like that, or are there different ways of getting the dog used to it?
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. So like lifting up their legs, kind of looking in, I call it armpits, but they're not armpits, you know what I mean? In around there, get them used to their legs being lifted, their tails being lifted. And another thing, most groomers, they kind of grab the side of the hair on their beard, and helps us to control their head movement so we can cut around their eyes. So that would, for me, would be the biggest obstacle with new dogs is they don't like me holding them here. So if you got them used to that, you would make a big difference for the groomer, for the dog, and for yourself, I suppose.
Okay, so just get them used to touching them, touching their paws and things like that. Is there a way of training them to get them used to it? Like, should you bring out the brush regularly with treats or anything like that at home?
Yeah, exactly. So get them used to the brushing, get them used to you kind of manipulating all their legs and their limbs. But a really good thing is if the dog is really nervous and doesn't want to come into the groomer, pop them into the car when you're going into town to do the shopping and just call out to me just to say hello, just to get me to rub the dog, just to get me to talk to you. Because when the dog sees me talking to the owner and we're laughing or we're having a good time, they're more at ease with me and they're more at ease at the situation and their surroundings. So I always say, just call out and say hello first.
One thing I wonder about, does the owner's mindset affect how the dog reacts to grooming? So, like that, if you're a new dog owner, like me, for example, and you're a little bit like, "Oh, am I hurting the dog? This or that?" Does the dog pick up on that, and does that affect the overall grooming session?
Absolutely. It absolutely does. Yeah. If you're in the car and you're automatically thinking, oh, this is going to be a nightmare, your dog is going to pick up on your energy and is going to think that. If you're at the gate dropping your dog in and you're hugging him and you're like, oh, you're going to be okay, don't you worry, they're going to fear what, like they're going to think, what is there to fear? What's going on? And they'll associate it with the grooming. The worst thing you can do is carry what you think the dog is going to perceive as grooming in a negative way, because they're mirroring you no matter what you do. They're always watching what you're doing and they're always mirroring your emotions.
Yeah, they're an awful lot smarter than we give them credit for. They pick up on things that we couldn't even imagine. Yeah, yeah, they're really manipulative too. What is the best mindset to have? What's the best mindset for someone to have when they're brushing their own dog?
Like, don't do it when you're in a rush or don't do it when you're in a bad mood. Do it and have a thought in your mind, as in, this is our little bonding session. Do it like, kind of brush them gently if they don't like it, then kind of get a little bit better or get kind of the knots out. Kind of just take your time with it, but have the right mindset, as in, just don't be in a bad mood or don't be rushing.
Okay, so pick a time when you're in a relaxed state of mind and when you can give them the full attention. Yeah, makes sense. One thing I notice whenever I take my dog to you to be groomed is it's a lot of fun. As soon as I'm at the gate and as soon as she's at the gate, it's like it's playtime. I'm laughing the whole time, you're laughing the whole time, and she doesn't want to leave. So, how do you create that space where it's fun, and how can people at home make it fun for their dogs to be groomed?
I would always, the minute I see a dog, I change the pitch of my voice. So the way I'm talking to you now, I wouldn't talk to a dog when I initially meet them this way. So a high pitched voice creates kind of happiness and excitement, and the dogs pick up on that. I kind of make it more about the dog than the owner. No offense to the owner, but they get the rubs and they get the kisses and all that kind of stuff when they see me. I kind of, some dogs like to have teddy bears or toys. If they do, that's what we let them have it. I don't take them away from them. And if dogs are really, really nervous and they want their owners to stay, we'll go with that as well. It's kind of more about the dog than the owner in my shop.
Yeah, okay, okay. So focus on the dog, bring in toys if you need to, and then change the pitch of your voice so they think it's playtime.
Yeah, yes, exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Okay. Which shampoos are best for dogs?
it it kind of depends, to be honest with you. I use kind of like a natural type of shampoos, so they'd either be oatmeal based, coconut based, aloe vera based, or tea tree based. I don't like all the really kind of perfumed shampoos. I don't think they do any good for your dog. Never ever use a human shampoo, not even a baby shampoo, on your dog's coat, because a dog's pH is completely different than a human's pH. Back 20 years ago, I was told that a baby shampoo was okay, but science has now proven that that's incorrect. So if you're one of those people that still uses baby shampoo, throw it out. It's not doing your dog any favors. It's actually going to dry out his coat. Um, Sometimes, a lot of times, I dilute my shampoos as well because they're too concentrated. The only shampoo that you don't dilute, obviously, is an insecticidal shampoo, like a flea shampoo. But always go for the more natural type shampoos. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're worth it.
Great. And one thing I'm curious about, I see in the shops, is conditioner. Is there any need for someone to use conditioner on their dog's coat?
I don't think it's necessary. It depends. If I had to brush out a very long haired, curly, say, poodle, I might put some shampoo in their hair just to kind of help with the brushing out or after you wash them. But for a general short haired shampoo and general short haired dog, shampoo is enough. You don't want to be overdoing it.
Okay, okay, great. And should people cut their dog's nails at home?
To be honest with you, if I'd advise not to, and it's not because the vet or myself are out there trying to make a few pound, it's because once you get it wrong, it's going to be wrong forever. What I mean by that is once you hurt a dog the once getting their nails cut, they're going to be nervous and scared of getting their nails forevermore. So especially black nails, you don't know where the blood vessel is, which is called a quick. If you cut that, they bleed, and it's very hard to get the bleeding to stop. So I think you're better off just going to a vet or going to a groomer to get the nails cut.
How often should people bath their dogs?
So yeah, there's a lot of people have kind of different theories on this, but and this is coming from a dog groomer. I don't think you should bath your dog. What I mean was with a shampoo more than once a month. If they go outside and they get muddy paws, just rinse them with water. Some dogs even like to lick the dirt off their own paws themselves. The more you wash a dog with shampoo, the more you destroy their natural oils. And what will happen is you'll get that really damp, doggy smell, and it'll always be there. And that's because you've destroyed the natural oils on the dog's coat.
Okay, so don't wash them too much. When we are washing our dogs, what kind of things should we look out for?
Oh, that's a tough question, actually. I suppose you can look out to see if there's any sort of dry skin, like a dandruff, flaky skin. You can look. Some dogs kind of suffer with almost like a fungicidal type of skin condition, and that looks kind of yellowy and patchy. Definitely, the ears is a big thing. When you're washing a dog, especially around the face, and you have the hose of the shower, always pinch the top of their ears. Why? It's because it stops any water from actually going into their ear. And the biggest cause of ear infections in dogs is water going into the ears from washing or from the dirty ground or from a dog bowl, and it travels up into the ear canal and it causes an ear infection. I suppose you could be looking out for see if there's any lumps or bumps when they're in the bath to make sure that they're okay health wise. And of course, if anything you do find, you're just better off going to your vet and asking.
When you're grooming your dog, there are a myriad of brushes available. There's every single brush, almost for every breed. Which brushes are the best, or is there a basic brush that covers most dogs in most situations?
The most basic brush is called a slicker brush. So it has kind of like looks like it has loads of little needles on it. It doesn't hurt your dog, but it pulls out the dead coat. That's what I would mostly use. For the likes of a golden retriever, that's really hairy, and the hair comes out in clumps and like a husky. The furminators are great. And then for anything that has a hair longer than an inch and a half to 2 inches, I would use a comb.
Okay, great. And do the de-shedding or anti-molting shampoos work?
I haven't found one that worked yet, so I can't say that they do. And I think they're a little bit gimmicky myself. If you think about a human and the amount of hairs that we lose off our heads every day, it's a bit silly to think that a dog doesn't lose his hair. So no matter what shampoo or what ointment or what you use, they're always going to lose hair.
Okay, okay. How should somebody get around that? Should they just brush them more and get used to it?
Yeah, well, you see, it's kind of a little bit of a catch situation because sometimes when you brush out all the dead hair, the skin can kind of get a kind of a chance to breathe more and is kind of happier and it's a better environment. So they can start to molt on you again. Of course, you brush it out again, but like the likes of Jack Russells, you can get a little gloved and you can kind of wipe down the kind of the hair off the Jack Russell with a glove. But I suppose just keep brushing is all you can do, but you have to remember if a dog is living inside an
Yeah.
essentially heated home, they're going to molt more. Now, it doesn't mean to throw the dog out in the shed or anything, but they'll always molt.
Right. Okay. So inside dogs always molt more. What are the biggest mistakes that you see people making when it comes to grooming or bathing their own dogs?
Definitely, the brushing is a big mistake. A lot of times, people are just brushing the top layer of the hair. If you want to get the undercoat, which is falling out of the hair without the hair getting matted, you need to be able to separate the hair so much that you can actually see the skin and then use your brush or your comb to pull out the hair. So you're kind of working backwards. It's different. We kind of brush your hair like this. With a dog, you're kind of working up this way and you're separating the hair. Another big mistake people often make with grooming their dogs is if their dogs are like bold, snarling or nipping. A lot of people kind of tell them that they're okay and they're the best dogs in the world. You kind of need to reprimand that kind of behavior, because if the vet goes to touch them or if I go to touch them, they're going to really snap at me and go for me. So if they're not good for you, they're definitely not going to be good for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think a lot of people, myself included, inadvertently reward bad behavior without realizing it. So sometimes you need a groomer or a trainer to point it out and maybe point you in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly.
When it comes to brushing dogs' teeth, should we do it ourselves or should we just leave them alone or is there a better way to help dogs look after their teeth?
Again, this is another controversial kind of question. Some people think, yeah, it's great. You can get these finger toothbrushes and you can get turkey flavored toothpaste. Personally, I think if the dog is on a correct diet, you can even get bones out of the butchers and boil them. They're really good for their teeth. That their teeth should be fine. There will always become there will always be a stage where you're going to have to get your dog's teeth cleaned inside in a vet's. That's just what happens. If you are a person that pays a groomer to clean their teeth, you're wasting your money, because they're just getting a toothbrush and they're just doing that, and it's doing absolutely nothing for the dog's teeth. They have a type of a bacteria in their mouths that is kind of almost like self-cleansing of their own oral hygiene. A lot of the times this bacteria is disturbed when they're eating a lot more human foods, or if they're not drinking kind of the right type of water, that kind of thing. But yeah, the dentist sticks are another thing. People think because they're advertised so well on the telly that they must be the best thing ever. They're terrible. They are full of fat. They don't do anything for their teeth, and they're just a gimmick.
Yeah, they're basically a treat. They'd be as good for their teeth as any other treat that you can buy. They tend to be a bit of a gimmick. You mentioned bones there in the butchers. Are there any bones that are ideal? Are there any bones that they should stay away from, like chicken bones?
Oh, definitely don't go near chicken bones. You'd
Okay.
be, the big bones, like a big cow thigh bone or whatever. Like the butcher would tell you, lots of people go into the butchers and get the bones for their dogs. Again, some people think give the bones raw. Then people say you should boil the bones. I kind of leave that one up to yourselves. I know my vet said to boil the bones, so that's what I would do. And then some people believe in the raw ones. So yeah, it's kind of preference, really, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I guess. Yeah, I've heard about the raw food movement in general, but I wouldn't do it personally, just to be on the safe side. But yeah, it's a personal choice. Is there
Yeah.
any age that you should wait until your puppy is old enough before they can have a bone from the butchers? Like, should you wait till they're past the puppy stage before you give them a bone like that?
Yeah, I kind of probably would. But then again, if it's a good quality bone, it's not going to break up into shards. That's the
Mhm.
whole kind of issue with giving the puppy the bone, is they don't want a piece of the bone to break out or break off, and they swallow it and it goes into their intestines. So if you're careful enough, you should be okay from any age.
Okay, great. And what questions are you most asked about as a dog?
I suppose just upkeep of the coat. I'd be asked about that. I'd be asked, do I have to shave the dog? That would be a big one. And I always say to people that when the dog starts to mat, when it has the first knot arrives on the coat, bring the dog into me. A lot of people wait till the entire dog is just one big knot. And unfortunately, there's nothing I can do but shave the dog. Now, when I say shave the dog, you're never in my grooming parlor going to see pink skin, and it's never going to be so bad where you don't see any hair. But I will have to cut the dog or cut the coat on the dog kind of fairly tight, depending on how bad the knots are. So that would be the main question I'm asked.
Okay, so do at home maintenance or else you'll have to shave their dog.
Yeah, or even bring in the dog sooner. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Ideally, how often should people bring in their dogs to the groomer?
It depends on the breed of dog. So if the non-shed breeds should be done every 6 to 8 weeks because they're so high maintenance. A Labrador, you might never have to come into the groomers with a Labrador because they're kind of, you just look after themselves. You can wash them yourself. Golden Retriever, probably every 3 4 months again. It depends on how the upkeep of the owner is. Yeah, it just depends on the breeding of the dog, really.
Well, that's all that we have time for today. Thanks so much for speaking to us. If somebody wants to get in touch with yourself and Canine Dog Grooming, how would they do so?
Well, I have an Instagram page, Canine Dog Groom and Thurles. I have a Facebook page with the same name. and my phone number is 087 8874 828.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Kibble and Quibble. For more information, visit kibbleandquibble.com or follow us on Facebook.